When nothing works and everything feels like it's slipping through your fingers, the last thing you need is more noise. What you truly need is clarity, mental clarity, emotional control, and the ability to stay focused no matter what's happening around you. Because in moments like that, pushing harder doesn't help, reacting faster makes it worse, and trying to fix the outside world without first mastering your inner world is a losing game. You're not broken, you're overwhelmed, your attention is fractured, your emotions are pulling in every direction, and the constant pressure to keep going has pushed you into survival mode. But here's the truth. If you don't master your emotions and direct your focus with intention, something or someone else will do it for you. And once that happens, you're no longer choosing your life, you're reacting to it. Stoic philosophy gives us something powerful, a way to reclaim control without needing to control everything. You may not be able to stop the storm, but you can stand grounded in the center of it. In this video, we'll uncover 8 powerful habits that sharpen emotional discipline, rebuild mental clarity, and restore your focus, even in chaos. You don't have to go through this blindly. Many have walked this path before, and now, so will you. Drop a comment below. I choose focus. Subscribe if you're ready to lead your mind, not follow it, and stay with me, because the most powerful part is just ahead. 1. Stop losing control. Losing control doesn't start with shouting or breaking things. It starts in silence with a small tightening in your chest, a subtle shift in your breath, and a spike of tension behind your eyes. It starts before you even know it's happening. When a careless comment stings more than it should, when a delay throws off your entire day, or when someone interrupts you mid-sentence and for a moment, you feel invisible. Most people don't explode because of what just happened. They break because of everything they've buried. Anger isn't born in an instant, it's layered. And when it surfaces, it's not the moment that triggered you that matters. It's the many moments you ignored. This is why mastering emotional control is not just about appearing calm, it's about protecting your clarity. When you lose control, even for a second, you hand over your power. You let the outside world dictate how you think, how you act, and who you become. And in that moment, you're no longer the author of your response. You've become a puppet of circumstance. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't preach perfection, but they demanded awareness. You cannot lead your life if you're not even present enough to notice what's steering you. In a world that rewards reaction and punishes stillness, emotional self-control becomes a radical act. You're taught to fight back, defend yourself, and prove your point. But that need to react is often fear wearing the mask of strength. True control isn't loud, it doesn't need to be. It's found in the pause between stimulus and response. That tiny space is where wisdom lives. It's where you choose to act from reason, not reflex. The reason most people spiral is because they don't see that space. They feel an emotion, and before they even take a breath, they've already spoken, already acted, already destroyed something they'll later regret. The Stoic path demands you slow down, not your ambition, not your purpose, but your reaction. Because once you can observe what you're feeling without being consumed by it, you stop being controlled by invisible forces. You take ownership. It's not a weakness to feel, it's a weakness to be ruled by feelings you never took the time to understand. That's where journaling, silence, and self-reflection become tools, not for escape, but for precision. When you know what's driving your emotions, you stop misfiring at the wrong people in the wrong moments for the wrong reasons. You stop projecting your stress onto your family. You stop mistaking discomfort for disrespect. You stop punishing the world for wounds it didn't cause. Emotional control starts with brutal honesty, not with others, but with yourself. You must ask, am I reacting to this situation or to something I've been carrying for days? Because 9 times out of 10, what breaks you now isn't what's in front of you, it's the weight you refuse to set down. And that's where Stoicism becomes more than a philosophy. It becomes a practice. You don't wait for a crisis to decide who you are. You prepare now. You train now. You build the habit of checking in with yourself before the world checks you. One sentence can save you. Wait, what am I really feeling right now? It sounds simple, almost too simple. But that question reclaims the present moment. It interrupts the cycle. It opens the door to clarity. And clarity is where power lives. Without it, you're just reacting, hoping you don't cause more damage. With it, you can choose who you want to be, even when the pressure is on. Focus and emotional control go hand in hand. You can't direct your attention if your emotions hijack you every hour. You can't build anything meaningful, business, relationships, legacy, if you're constantly repairing what you've broken in emotional outbursts. A calm mind isn't just peaceful, it's productive. It finishes things, it sees clearly, it leads well. And in today's world, it stands out like a lighthouse in the fog. You don't need to become a different person. You need to become the version of yourself who stops giving away power, who refuses to let momentary frustration sabotage long-term peace, who can be challenged without becoming defensive, who can be criticized without crumbling, who can feel without becoming reactive. That kind of control is earned, not gifted. You build it by noticing earlier, pausing longer, breathing deeper. And every time you do, you send a signal to your mind: I am in charge. I am not my emotions. I am the one who observes them, who learns from them, and who decides what happens next. In the end, self-control is not about suppression. It's about alignment. It's about standing in the middle of chaos with a mind so still that even the storm pauses to observe you. That's what makes you unshakable. Not that you never feel, but that you never let the feeling choose for you. 2. The power of pause. Power isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the silence between two thoughts, the breath between reaction and response, the space you create before emotion takes over. In that space, just a few seconds wide, you can reclaim your mind. That pause can stop you from saying words you can't take back, from sending messages you'll regret, from making decisions fueled by pressure instead of purpose. In a world that rewards speed, the ability to pause is a hidden weapon. And yet, most people don't even know it exists. They rush to defend themselves. They interrupt. They strike back. They fill every silence with noise because silence makes them uncomfortable. But stillness is where real power is built. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to prove anything in the heat of the moment. What you need is control. And control begins with awareness. That awareness isn't born in the chaos, it's built in the quiet. The Stoics practiced this not by chance, but by design. They knew that reaction is instinct, but response is strength. The difference between the two is the pause. Without it, your emotions lead. With it, your reason returns. And in that return, your dignity stays intact. The pause doesn't make you passive, it makes you precise. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough not to damage what actually matters. There is more courage in restraint than in retaliation, especially when ego demands you fight back, especially when pride pushes you to answer fast, but pride is impatient. Ego hates silence. They both want the last word. Let them starve, let them sit. You don't owe the world an immediate response. You owe yourself clarity before reacting. There's a difference between a delayed reaction and a wise response. And that difference shapes your outcomes. When you learn to pause, you begin to notice that most situations aren't urgent. Most provocations don't require a reply. Most arguments aren't worth winning. The need to respond quickly is a symptom of emotional impatience. But a calm mind doesn't rush. It observes, it absorbs, then it speaks, not to prove, but to move forward. Try it once, just once. When someone provokes you, pause. Not for an hour, not for a minute, just 5 seconds. Feel the tension rise. Let it be. Don't resist it. Don't obey it. Just witness it. Then ask, is this reaction necessary? Most of the time, the answer is no. Most of the time, the storm passes without your interference. That's the power of pause. It doesn't suppress emotion, it filters it. It gives you enough distance to choose a response instead of becoming one. Even in leadership, the strongest person in the room is rarely the one speaking the most. It's the one who pauses before they do. People pay attention to someone who doesn't react impulsively and who listens fully before answering. In a business setting, it's often the leader who remains composed in tension who commands trust. Not because they dominate, but because they don't let emotions dominate them. That's what builds emotional control. Repetition of restraint, moment after moment, until it becomes instinct. But like any skill, This one takes daily practice. You don't master the pause when chaos arrives. You build it in quiet moments, through habits that train the mind to wait. Meditation, deep breathing, journaling. These aren't trends. They're systems that anchor your nervous system and sharpen your self-discipline. You practice pausing with yourself so that when pressure rises, you already know what stillness feels like. You've been there. You've held it. And now, you can take it anywhere. The ancient Stoics weren't just warriors of action. They were guardians of reaction. Marcus Aurelius didn't pause because he was unsure. He paused because he knew certainty didn't need speed. Epictetus didn't stay quiet because he lacked words. He stayed quiet because he had mastered the ones that mattered. They understood something modern life makes easy to forget. The faster you move, the less you see. But the more you pause, the more you understand. Understanding is what allows you to rise above noise. So the next time you're provoked, tempted, or triggered, don't respond out of habit. Don't hand over your dignity for the sake of being right. Instead, pause long enough to remember who you are. Pause until the urge to react passes. Pause until the clarity returns. Because in that moment, what you choose says more about your strength than any words ever could. The pause isn't a delay, it's a declaration. A declaration that your mind is your own, that your emotions don't own you, that your response is chosen, not forced. That's not a weakness, that's power. And in a world that's spinning too fast, the one who pauses, not to escape, but to stay grounded, is the one who truly leads. 3. Focus amid chaos. Focus isn't something you find, it's something you build, deliberately, daily, and especially when everything around you is falling apart. Chaos is no longer the exception. It's the default setting of modern life. Notifications never stop. Markets fluctuate. Deadlines stack up. People expect instant replies. There's always something urgent pulling at your attention. But here's the truth. You can't control the chaos, only how you respond to it. And the sharper your focus, the calmer your response. In the Stoic world, inner clarity was more valuable than outer control. You could lose everything, your title, your fortune, your home, but if you kept your mind still, you hadn't lost yourself. That mindset applies more than ever today. Because most people don't break from pressure itself, they break from distraction. When your mind is split in 10 directions, you make shallow decisions. You get reactive, you lose your edge, and eventually, you lose your peace. Take David, a logistics manager in a distribution center just outside of Columbus, Ohio. His mornings started before sunrise. He had a team to oversee, routes to check, trucks to load, and constant calls from upper management. During peak season, the floor got loud, phones rang non-stop, and drivers waited for answers. One morning, as system errors backed up the delivery queue, everyone looked to him, some with complaints, some with panic. But instead of trying to fix 10 things at once, he reached into his pocket, pulled out a note he'd written the night before, and read it to himself. If I only do one thing right today, I'll lead with clarity. He took a breath, looked at the team, and calmly said, "We handle this one route at a time. That's where we start." That small act shifted the energy in the room, from scattered panic to focused execution. David wasn't superhuman. He simply trained his mind to resist the urge to multitask in chaos. He understood a simple truth. Focus is a decision, not a feeling. And the more chaotic your environment is, the more decisions matter. It's easy to focus in silence. The test is, can you focus while the world is on fire? That's where most people collapse. Not because they're weak, but because they never built a system to anchor their mind. They wake up and dive straight into their inbox. They let the outside world write their to-do list. They react before they reflect. That's not focus, that's submission. And in Stoic thinking, the only thing worse than chaos is being ruled by it. So what do? You build non-negotiable habits that train your brain to return to the center. It doesn't take hours, it takes intention. 5 minutes in the morning, 1 line in a journal, a clear target. Not 10 tasks, just one that defines the day. If you want to regain focus, start there. Ask yourself, what will matter tonight when I look back on this day? Then do that first, and guard it with discipline. Focus also means learning to disconnect from what doesn't need your energy. Not every message needs a reply right now. Not every problem is yours to solve. Not every conversation deserves your attention. You don't owe your availability to anyone who demands it. You owe your focus to what you've chosen to build. And that choice is the foundation of self-respect. In the workplace, the man who focuses under pressure becomes irreplaceable, not because he does more, but because he does what matters. He brings clarity when others bring chaos. He becomes the anchor when things drift. And that doesn't come from talent. It comes from practice. From pausing before reacting, from planning before responding, from breathing before speaking. Even in your personal life, this matters. When your kids are yelling, when your partner is frustrated, when your phone keeps buzzing, can you still focus on what the moment needs? These are not perfect answers, just presence, just awareness, just enough calm to guide the situation, not feed the storm. That's the essence of Stoicism. Not to run from life, but to stand inside it with a still mind. If you're constantly distracted, you're not living, you're drifting. Focus is the way back to yourself. It sharpens your decisions, it clears your thoughts, it reclaims your time, and above all, it restores your peace. No amount of success is worth it if you feel scattered, drained, and distant from your own purpose. Don't wait for the world to calm down. It won't. The storm isn't the enemy, it's the training ground. Focus amid chaos isn't something you try once, it's something you become. Not because it's easy, but because the man who controls his attention controls his direction. And the man who controls his direction controls his life. 4. Train your mind daily. A strong mind is not a gift, it's a result. And the only way to build it is by showing up for it, every single day. Just like you train your body to lift more, endure longer, or move faster, your mind must be trained to remain calm, think clearly, and resist the pull of distractions. Emotional control, mental discipline, resilience, none of these are natural. They are built, deliberately, repeatedly, especially when life is quiet, because that's when the real training happens. Not when chaos strikes, but in the moments you think nothing is at stake. Most people only pay attention to their mental strength when everything has fallen apart. But by then, it's often too late. You don't learn to swim in the middle of a storm. You practice when the waters are still. And that's what Stoic thinkers understood long before the world was drowning in notifications, pressure, and overstimulation. They built their routine around reflection, silence, and inner alignment, not because it made them feel good, but because it made them unshakable. The truth is, your mind will default to whatever you've trained it to do. If you train it with silence, it will return to stillness. If you train it with a reaction, it will seek noise. And when challenges arrive, and they always do, it's that training that decides your behavior, not willpower. Think of Marcus, a 43-year-old sales executive in Atlanta. After burning out in his 30s, he realized success meant nothing if he couldn't focus, if he snapped at his kids or woke up every morning already anxious. So he made one change, just 10 minutes of silence each morning before touching his phone. He called it his mental reset. No apps, no hacks, just breathe, a pen, and one question: what kind of man do I want to be today? That habit shifted his entire rhythm. He stopped reacting to emails with frustration. He stopped entering meetings tense. He started choosing calm over chaos, not by luck, but by design. You don't need hours, you need commitment. And that begins with a ritual. A small, grounded moment in your day that teaches your brain to slow down and center. You ask, how do I feel? Before the world tells you how to feel. You write down your thoughts before they take over. You breathe before you act. These are not soft actions, they're deliberate, disciplined acts of strength. Because discipline isn't just about working hard, it's about working from the right place mentally. A scattered mind can work 12 hours and still feel lost. A focused mind can work 3 and build something that lasts. And just like physical training, mental training compounds. You don't see the benefit after one session. But after 1 week, your reactions soften. After 1 month, your mind clears faster. After 1 year, your presence changes the room. People feel it. They don't know what it is, but they notice that you don't shake like they do. You respond instead of react. You listen longer. You breathe deeper. And most of all, you don't need external chaos to decide who you are internally. Stoicism teaches that you cannot control what life gives you, but you are always in control of what you bring to life. And what you bring starts with how you train your mind. When you wake up in the morning, your thoughts are raw. That's the moment to shape them. 5 minutes of gratitude, a single sentence that sets your direction, or a moment of silence to remind yourself, I'm in control of how I move through today. At night, you complete the loop. Before bed, instead of scrolling or numbing out, you sit with your mind and ask, where did I stay composed today? Where did I lose it? What can I adjust tomorrow? That reflection doesn't just help you sleep better, it sharpens you. It brings your blind spots into the light so you stop repeating the same emotional mistakes. People often think mental strength is about not feeling, but it's the opposite. It's about feeling everything and still choosing wisely. That kind of discipline only grows when you confront your emotions daily, in private, before they explode in public. That's why journaling matters. That's why reflection matters. That's why silence matters. Not because they make you feel spiritual, but because they make you strategic. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to practice. Every day, especially when it feels unnecessary, especially when life feels okay. Because the man who trains when it's easy will stand steady when it's not, and the man who reflects in the quiet will not collapse in the noise. In the end, it's not what you do when everything goes wrong that defines you, it's what you do every morning before anything happens at all. Train your mind daily, and you won't need to chase control. You'll carry it with you. Everywhere. 5. Stop overthinking. Overthinking is not a sign of intelligence. It's a symptom of indecision. The mind spins not because it's sharp, but because it's untrained. And the longer you let thoughts circle without action, the heavier they become. What starts as a simple question turns into anxiety. What should take 10 minutes takes 3 hours. What could be done today is left waiting for the perfect moment that never arrives. You don't need more information. You need movement. Because clarity isn't found in thinking more, it's found in doing the next right thing. The Stoics understood that worry begins when action ends. They didn't sit around debating what life meant, they lived it with intention. They stripped decisions down to essentials. What's in my control? What's not? What can I do now? They trained themselves to see action as therapy, not emotional reaction, but purposeful, directed steps. And that mindset still works today because most modern stress isn't rooted in chaos. It's rooted in stagnation. When the mind doesn't move forward, it turns against itself. Thought becomes pressure. Options become paralysis. And instead of progress, you get exhaustion. The lie behind overthinking is that if you think long enough, you'll eventually feel ready. But readiness doesn't come from thinking. It comes from choosing. Most of the time, you're not confused. You're afraid. Afraid to be wrong, afraid to be judged, afraid that your next step won't be perfect. So you wait, you spin, you analyze, and every moment you hesitate, your confidence bleeds out in silence. The truth is that action builds confidence faster than certainty ever will. You don't need the whole path to start walking. You need one clear step, just one. Then take it, then take another. Clarity doesn't come before movement, it follows it. But that means you have to be willing to let go of perfect answers. You have to be okay with starting messy. Because the cost of overthinking is not just wasted time, it's wasted life. You miss the moment. You lose momentum. Eventually, you stop trusting yourself. There's power in doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel ready. There's strength in choosing progress over perfection. There's wisdom in choosing clarity over control. You don't need 10 backup plans. You need courage. You don't need guarantees. You need presence. Because the future doesn't reward those who calculate the longest. It rewards those who move when it matters. The mind that's constantly evaluating never gets around to executing. But the mind trained to act builds a different kind of focus. Sharp, simple, effective. Stoic discipline doesn't mean rushing into everything. It means reducing decisions to essentials and then moving without hesitation. That's how you master overthinking. Not by suppressing thoughts, but by replacing them with forward motion. Not with emotional reaction, but with practical response. You ask yourself, what do I know for sure? What's the next smallest step? And then you do it. Not because it feels good, but because it gets you unstuck. Overthinking often hides behind the mask of productivity. You tell yourself you're preparing, you're researching, you're planning, but underneath it there's fear. Fear of failure, fear of exposure, fear that once you act, people will finally see you. But here's the truth. Overthinking is not safety, it's delay. Delay is a quiet form of self-betrayal. Every time you overthink, you teach your mind that doubt wins, but when you act, you train it to trust again. This is why stillness must be part of your daily routine. Not passive stillness, but intentional silence. A place where your thoughts are seen, not obeyed. A space where you ask the right questions and not recycle the same worries. A moment each day where you check in, not check out. Because without that reset, your mind becomes a maze, a loop with no exit. And you don't escape it by thinking harder. You break the loop by stepping out. Even your goals suffer when you overthink. You start second-guessing your own direction. You compare, you hesitate, you rewrite the same plan for the 10th time. But results don't come from perfect plans, they come from repeated action. Repeated action only comes from simplified thought. You don't need more time to think, you need stronger habits that prevent your thoughts from spiraling. So simplify your choices, narrow your focus. Take the first step, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Now, train your mind to act when it wants to stall. Teach it that progress matters more than perfection. And remind yourself constantly that overthinking is not caution, it's resistance. And resistance is not protection, it's paralysis. In the end, the choice is always the same. Let your thoughts trap you, or let your actions free you. One keeps you circling the same questions, the other moves you forward. You already know which one leads to peace. So don't wait to feel certain. Just begin, because the mind that learns to act becomes unstoppable. 6. Emotions are messengers. Your emotions aren't mistakes, they're messages. They don't show up to ruin your day, they arrive to reveal something deeper. But most people don't listen. They fight their feelings, they push them down, they judge themselves for even having them. And in doing so, they miss the most important truth. Every emotion carries information. Not commands, not orders, but insight. And if you ignore that insight, you'll keep reacting instead of responding. Stoic philosophy doesn't tell you to suppress your emotions. It tells you to understand them. It teaches that emotions don't define who you are. They highlight where you are. Anxiety often means uncertainty is clouding your clarity. Anger shows where your boundaries are being crossed. Sadness often points to what you've neglected or lost touch with. Emotions are like internal messengers knocking at your door saying, "Pay attention. Something important is happening inside." The problem is that we treat them like intruders instead of guides. Emotional control doesn't mean never feeling anything. It means knowing what to do when you feel everything. You don't need to fear your emotions. You need to decode them. You need to step back and ask, what is this trying to tell me? That pause, that question, that moment of clarity, it's what separates reaction from reflection. And reflection is where strength is born. You stop being pushed around by mood swings. You stop getting hijacked by triggers. You stop saying, "I don't know why I feel this way," and start saying, "I see what's really going on here." Most of your worst decisions didn't come from logic. They came from emotions you didn't pause to question. You reacted, snapped, avoided, shut down, because you didn't realize your body was speaking first. And when you live that way long enough, you start to believe you have no control. But you do. You just haven't practiced listening before acting. That's where self-awareness becomes your strongest weapon. Not to judge yourself, but to observe. You start tracking what feelings show up, when they show up, and what they consistently point to. You stop making assumptions. You start making space, and that space gives you freedom, because you don't have to obey every emotion. You just have to understand them. Let the signal in, get the message, and decide how you want to respond. That's real control, not silence, not suppression, but presence. The useful practice is keeping an emotion log, not for therapy, but for clarity. When something hits you hard, write it down. 3 lines. What did I feel? What caused it? What is this emotion asking me to look at? After a week, you'll start seeing patterns. You'll stop blaming random moments for the weight you carry. You'll realize it's not traffic that made you explode. It's the stress you've been ignoring for days. It's not your coworker's tone. It's the self-doubt you haven't faced. And that kind of self-honesty is rare. But it's also where freedom begins. In the Stoic mindset, every feeling is an invitation to sharpen your perception, to go beneath the surface. Align your values with your reactions. The point is not to eliminate emotion, it's to use it wisely. Your anger can protect your standards if you let it speak without letting it control. Your anxiety can make you more prepared if you respond with planning instead of panic. Even grief, when honored, reminds you what truly matters. But if you rush to avoid every feeling, you never learn from any of them. And if you drown in them, you can't lead yourself through them. You have to stand in the middle. Feel full. Then, lead wisely. That's the mark of a trained mind. That's the difference between someone who's constantly thrown off course and someone who adapts without losing direction. You are not weak for feeling. You are only weakened when you refuse to face what those feelings are trying to tell you. When you treat emotions as enemies, they haunt you. When you treat them as teachers, they strengthen you. The mind that sees emotion as data, not identity, is a mind that becomes resilient. That mind doesn't panic when fear arises. It listens, it adjusts, and it moves forward with intention. Emotions are messengers, but they whisper, not scream. And the only way to hear them is to stop filling your life with noise. Slow down. Be still. Pay attention. Ask better questions. Then take what you've learned and move with purpose. That's how you stop reacting blindly and start living with wisdom. That's how you become the kind of person who feels deeply, but never lets feelings decide alone. Because at the end of the day, the man who understands his emotions owns his life. The one who doesn't gets owned by it. 7. Evening calm ritual. The day doesn't end when the clock says so. It ends when your mind releases it. Without that release, you don't rest. You just pause your anxiety until morning. And that's why most people wake up tired, even after a full night's sleep. Their body shuts down, but their mind keeps running. They go to bed thinking about problems, conversations, regrets, and unfinished tasks, replaying loops that drain energy and sabotage clarity. An evening ritual isn't luxury. It's protection, a boundary between who you were today and who you choose to be tomorrow. Stoicism begins and ends in awareness. Marcus Aurelius wrote in the dark alone while the empire demanded his strength. He didn't write to be remembered. He wrote to remember himself. He ended his day by meeting his thoughts face to face, not to escape, but to sort them, sharpen them, strip them of unnecessary weight. He knew the battle outside was tough, but the real war was internal. And the only way to stay focused, grounded, and emotionally in control tomorrow was to process what happened today. You need that space. A moment each evening when the phone is off, the noise is gone, and the only voice you hear is your own. You don't need candles or music or some complex mindfulness routine. What you need is silence, structure, and truth. A check-in, a reset, a simple, honest pause where you ask yourself, where did I stay composed today? Where did I lose my grip? What do I want to carry forward? And what must I release? These aren't soft questions, they're sharp ones. The kind that trains your emotional discipline and anchors your mental clarity. If you want to control your emotions in chaos, you have to train your reflection in calm. The evening is the most strategic time to do that. Not just because the world slows down, but because your brain is preparing for the next day. If you go to sleep cluttered, your subconscious stays in battle mode. But if you go to sleep clear, your mind begins to rebuild. That's not just psychology, that's strategy. Stoic philosophy teaches that we're not disturbed by things, but by our judgments of them. The evening ritual is where you examine those judgments. You look at what made you angry and ask whether it was the event or your expectations. You revisit what stressed you and ask whether it was pressure or a lack of preparation. You review your reactions, not to punish yourself, but to understand what your emotions were trying to say. And in that quiet process, your identity starts to shift. You stop carrying guilt for the whole day. You stop running from feelings that were never processed. You stop ending your night in confusion and start ending it in control. This practice is simple but powerful. You don't need an hour. You need intention. Write 3 lines, no more. 1. What did I do today that aligned with who I want to become? 2. What emotional pattern do I want to change tomorrow? 3. What truth do I need to remember before I sleep? That's it. That's your pause. That's your peace. That's your reset. What happens next is subtle but life-changing. The next day, your reactions are slow. Your focus sharpens. Your words become more measured. Not because you tried harder, but because your mind was trained the night before. Reflection is how you program your subconscious. And once you do it consistently, the chaos outside no longer pulls you into panic. You move slower, but with more precision. You feel deeper, but with more clarity. You speak less, but with more power. You begin to realize that most of your emotional outbursts weren't because of what just happened, but because you never unpacked what came before. The frustration you carry to work, the tension you bring home, the anxiety that lingers in your chest, it builds silently. Unless you pause to process it, it becomes the lens you see everything. But once you sit with it, own it, and write it down, it loses power over you. This isn't self-care. This is self-command, the kind the Stoics lived by. A daily rhythm where your mind doesn't just run your life, it reports to you. And every night before the world tells you what matters again, you decide that for yourself. You realign with your values. You remember your directions. You rewire your emotional responses, not with force, but with presence. The world wants you to finish each day numb, to scroll, to binge, to drown the signals you should be listening to. But you weren't built for numbness. You were built for clarity. And clarity doesn't come by accident. It comes through ritual, through pause, through quiet strength repeated daily. In the end, it's not the chaos that breaks you. It's the lack of closure. Build that closure with purpose. End each day with intention. And you won't just sleep better, you'll live better. Because the man who controls how his day ends is already shaping how the next one begins. 8. Let go. Focus forward control is not about gripping tighter. It's about knowing when to release. The more you try to control everything, what people think, how they respond, what might happen next, the more scattered your mind becomes. Focus doesn't come from holding on, it comes from letting go. Because your attention is limited, whatever drains it also directs it. If your mind is stuck in the past or trapped in what-ifs, it's not available for the only thing you can act on: this moment. The Stoics taught that freedom isn't found in having power over everything. It's found in understanding what you don't need to carry. You cannot lead your mind forward if it's shackled to what you wish had gone differently. You cannot think clearly if your thoughts are constantly circling people or outcomes beyond your reach. And yet, that's where most people live. Mentally replaying old conversations, overanalyzing what they should have said, or trying to fix someone else's opinion of them. It's not noble, it's not strategic. It's emotional fatigue disguised as responsibility. Letting go is not passive. It's an active decision to focus your power where it counts. When you stop wasting mental energy on what you can't control, you free up space to direct your actions with purpose. That's what builds self-discipline. That's how you reclaim emotional control. Not by avoiding the hard stuff, but by refusing to wrestle shadows. You can't fix a moment that's already gone, but you can shape the one in front of you. And that shift is where true mental clarity begins. It's when you stop needing closure from others. When you stop needing everything to be fair. When you stop letting delay or disappointment define you. Instead of saying, "Why did this happen to me?" you begin to ask, "What can I still build from here?" That one question is the difference between people who stay stuck and people who move forward. You don't need perfect conditions to refocus. You just need a clean mental slate. And that begins with the courage to drop what's not yours. Sometimes what's not yours is someone else's reaction. Sometimes it's guilt that no longer serves you. Sometimes it's the version of yourself you've outgrown, but keep performing for. All of it takes energy to maintain. And every moment you keep holding it is a moment you lose for the life you actually want to live. The Stoic way isn't cold or careless. It's intentional. It's about detachment. Not from people, but from the illusion that your peace depends on anything outside you. Do you want to lead yourself better? Do you want to stay focused and emotionally steady in a chaotic world? Then you must get ruthless about your attention. You must learn to let go, not just once, but daily. You write it down. You name what's stealing your focus. Then you ask the hardest but most freeing question. Does this need to stay with me? Or can I release it now? The answer won't always be easy, but it will always be honest. And that honesty is the gateway to power. Because once you stop lying to yourself about what you can fix, you stop wasting time on trying. You stop negotiating with the past. You stop proving your worth through over-effort. You become clear, clean, and light. Your mind has fewer tabs open. Your energy is directed instead of drained. And your discipline stops being forced. It becomes natural. When you let go, you stop overreacting to what doesn't deserve a reaction. You stop thinking about people who haven't thought about you in years. You stop fighting battles that were never yours to begin with. And in that stillness, you realize something deeper. Focus isn't something you chase. It's what's left when you subtract distraction. When you remove the weight, what remains is direction. That's why the Stoics practiced negative visualization, not to dwell on loss, but to prepare the mind to release what it cannot control. They imagined losing what they valued, not out of fear, but to remember that nothing external is truly guaranteed. And from that detachment came peace. From that peace came strength. From that strength came a focus that no chaos could disrupt. So let go, not as a way to give up, but as a way to go deeper. Release what's already gone. Release what was never yours. Release what interrupts your clarity. Then turn forward, not blindly, but with resolve. When you finally stop asking the past for permission to move on, you free your future to become something new. What you don't release will continue to rule you. But what you let go of, consciously, firmly, without resentment, will create the space for something better. Let go, not because it's easy, but because your purpose is too important to delay. Focus forward. You owe that to yourself, and no one else can do it for you. In a world filled with noise, urgency, and constant demands, the ability to stay calm and focused is not just rare, it's powerful. Through the lens of Stoic philosophy, we've uncovered 8 timeless habits that train the mind, restore emotional balance, and sharpen your attention where it truly matters. Each one. Pausing before reacting, journaling with honesty, letting go of what you cannot control, anchoring your focus daily is more than a strategy. It is a discipline. And like all disciplines, it only works if practiced. Emotional control doesn't mean suppressing what you feel. It means learning how to lead those feelings with clarity. Focus isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters most, with presence. Both are skills, both are choices, and both are forged in silence, reflection, and deliberate action. The path to mastering your emotions and protecting your focus is not dramatic. It is quiet. It is built in early mornings, in mindful evenings, in small moments where you choose awareness over impulse. The world may not notice your discipline, but you will feel its power every time you remain composed when chaos calls your name. So begin now. Choose one habit. Practice it until it becomes part of you. And when the world pulls you in every direction, return to these truths. You have power over your mind, not outside events. You own your focus. You direct your peace. If this message spoke to you, I invite you to share your journey in the comments below. How have you trained your mind? What habits have helped you stay grounded? Your story may be the spark someone else needs. Keep going. Keep practicing. Let stillness become your strength. Let focus become your freedom.